Halloween has second highest October opening weekend ever. That is the headline on this week's Movie Burner News. And joining us as always is John, and this is coming in from Screen Rant, but it's coming in from various sources here anyway on the internet, John, on the release of course, Halloween. Film came out here on Friday, John. Not had a chance to go and see it. We're desperate to see this movie, of course, because personally I've never seen a Halloween movie in the cinema, so itching to go and see this latest instalment. Our senior writer actually made a good point on Twitter the other day, Darren. He's very opinionated on the regards to the title of this movie, and I've got to agree. This is supposed to be a sequel to the original Halloween movie, but this one's called Halloween as well. But it does beg the question, what do you call it then? But anyway, John, I'll let you in with your thoughts on this.
Yes, well, first and foremost, I can't wait to see the film as well, Stephen. It's one of my all-time favourite horror films. It's just an absolute classic. Generally speaking, I don't like the slasher horror films. It's not something I really go for, because 99.9% of them are trying to copy the original Halloween film from 1978, and this is obviously, as Darren rightly says, a sequel. And I may have a theory on that. They may be getting around calling it Halloween because they're branding this as a quasi-sequel, and that it's just completely ignoring all the other crap, and don't want to put out Halloween 2 because that would associate it with that utter pile of shite that was the original Halloween 2. But it's a quasi-sequel. It's taking place straight after the events we've seen, and it's taking place after the events we've seen in the first film. It's totally discarding all the other crap. It's not taking place straight after. It's 40 years later, for Christ's sake. Laurie Strode is much older now. She can't pass for someone. She can't pass for that age now. Although Michael Myers probably could, but even he's put a bit of wearing on the mask. I don't know how he managed that when he was locked in a mental asylum, but hey ho, can't be picking these things. But I'm really excited to see this film. I can't wait to see what they've done with it. I hope it stands up. I don't think it will be anywhere near as good as the original, but you look at the Rotten Tomato feedback already, Stephen. Top critics 77%, all critics 80%, 79% of the audience are liking this film. That equates to a 4 out of 5. It's getting very good feedback. I don't know what its IMDb rating is. I think that's round about a similar level. So it all seems to be pointing to a positive direction for this film. And you look at that massive opening weekend for October, second ever. I think it was Venom that actually took the #1 spot just a couple of weeks ago, and now this has nearly topped it. Not quite though, sadly. But that's an amazing performance for this film. It gives me confidence that they've got it right, Blumhouse, because they do have a tendency to release a smattering of shite films with tiny budgets, and then they release a very good film to bridge those helpings of utter garbage. And this is one of the good ones. We've seen it with Upgrade. I don't think it's on this level, but it was a very good film, I believe, from Blumhouse, off of a very small budget. This has only got a $10 million budget, and for it to open with $77 million, it's already made a profit from its opening weekend and win territory. And we know it's going to open at #1 over here. We haven't got the box office numbers on us right now because I've not looked it up and I'm lazy git. But I know it's going to open massively over here as well. Yeah. Here, there and everywhere, as the people said, Steve.
Listen, we'll talk about this next week on Box Office Chat anyway, John. You're right, it's just sort of missed the mark on being the highest ever October release. And but in the grand scheme of things, I think it's probably been a more successful movie financially if you're comparing it to Venom. Because I think it was only, $10 million or something to make this movie, which is it's remarkable. It really is. But you look at it and go, well, a movie like that should cost that anyway. It's not got any great CG or the location's going to be back to where it all began as well. They're getting the original actor to come in and play Michael Myers or The Shape, whatever you want to call him. I think David Gordon Green's Halloween, this one, 2018 one, was always going to be a phenomenon anyway. I think it was going to be a foregone conclusion that it was going to have one of the all-time opening weekends anyway, especially for this genre. So it's ticking all the boxes anyway. So it's really a movie I'm really looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, you're right, Stephen. Just with it, what you said there about it being a phenomenon of sorts, a bit of a zeitgeist for the horror genre, the slasher genre, sub-genre within the horror genre. Just with it being the 40-year anniversary of the original film, it feels like they've caught a bit of lightning in a bottle here. And as I did say, Blumhouse just know how to get it right. Just looking at the figures though, Stephen, the breakdown of that box office, The percentage total of the weekend that Venom took in its opening weekend, which was also the biggest in October, 46.9%. Halloween, 100%. I don't know what the hell that means, but it's outperformed it in every other category other than the actual top grossings. But listen, I cannot wait to see this film. It's going to be incredible. I know it is. The cast look up for it. Jamie Lee Curtis looks up for it, and I just, even with the introduction of Will Payton in there as well, a guy I've enjoyed in a number of films, I'm looking forward to seeing what he brings. I hope we didn't see his death in the trailer, because obviously Michael Myers of The Shape was ominously walking up behind him with a very large blade. But listen, I ain't get much more to add until I see the film. I know I'm going to like it though.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll cover this more in depth next week, John, especially on Box Office Chat, and also next week's movie Burner News as well, which is going to be specifically horror based anyway, just in the lead up to Halloween. But we're going to move on to our next topic. This is a film that was dropped here in the UK on the 16th of October called They Shall Not Grow Old. This is the Peter Jackson film. It's a restoration job basically of World War I footage that's never been seen to commemorate the centennial of the end of the Great War, I think it was called. And at this point I think it's only in 2 theatres here in Glasgow, John, so it's going to be very hard to come by. I'm trying my best to try and get out to see this movie before they pull it. I don't think it's going to be in theatres that long. No. We've only seen the trailer for this. We didn't really talk about this in previous shows, John, but just from what we've seen on the trailer, this is a remarkable achievement from Peter Jackson and his team, who have restored all this old footage. I like the way that they sort of do that kind of crossover effect where you're seeing the old grainy footage and seeing it getting restored right in front of your eyes. The other thing I picked out from the trailer as well was the sound. I thought that was crystal clear for footage that's over 100 years old now. Is quite remarkable, isn't it?
It is. I actually watched a short interview with Peter Jackson talking about it. I don't know if it was for the BBC or someone else, maybe on YouTube or something, and he went into detail about the process. I think it was a museum had contacted him saying, I'd asked him if he'd be interested in doing something with the footage. He went back over to New Zealand, fought over. Obviously he had a grandfather who fought in the Great War, I think he was English or he was British, so it's something that's close to his heart. And he says yes, he'd agreed to look into it. He got them to send the footage over. I think it was maybe a short couple of snippets, seeing what he could do with it. Then when he realised the potential, just how much he could clean it up and just how incredible the footage actually held up, 100 years old, he then decided to dive right into this project and see just what he could put together. And I think he said something like there was 100 hours worth of audio and 70 odd hours of video. So he had a real treasure trove to dive into and do magic with. And he's absolutely right. He says this is uncharted territories in the interview as well. But they've never really took all the modern day digital technology and restoring stuff and put it into something like this and seen what you could do. I mean, I've watched World War II in colour with the colorised all the old videos and stuff, and at that particular time period, and that's incredible as well. But this is another level really. When you look at the graininess of some of the shots and how clear it comes out, and what it does for the people in the shots as well. I've always felt that when you look at black and white photos or videos of that period, it dehumanises the people in it. I think he actually says that at one point too. It takes them from being these jerky, almost Charlie Chaplin-esque figures and turns them, and it shows them as having human traits. They look more humane, they look like people in this day and age. It turns them into living, breathing humans. And just when you mix that with the audio from that time period, it gives you a real sense of what it was like being there at that point. He says as well that there was one shot where a bomb comes down or something, or a bit of artillery goes off, and his grandfather was actually 100 yards away from that, so it gave him a chance to look at something that his grandfather had seen, and it transported him back and let him see what his grandfather had experienced. So it's magical in that sense. I just think this is incredible. It's an incredible work of art that he's managed to put together. It's not something I would have associated with Peter Jackson doing this sort of stuff, but I'm glad he's done it, because he's got, as he says himself, he's got his own building full of hundreds of thousands of computers with incredible power, and to do this and do it right, and he's done it right, man.
Yeah, I think he's done it right as well, John, because you know, you go on the History Channel or anything like that on the satellite or cable, and come across like you know, Hitler in colour and stuff like that, World War II in colour and that. And a lot of it is very impressive work, very impressive restoration, but a lot of it was colorisation as well, which kind of takes you out of it. Ron Howard used this in that Beatles on tour movie that he did. He colorised, or his team colorised a lot of the old footage, which I found it a bit off-putting. Their faces were almost Peppa Piggish, very pinkish, you know. And I don't like that, but this seems to have
it's more nuanced.
Yeah, it's, you know, it just looks so real, you know, and it kind of gives you an idea of what it would have been like. You're right there as well, John. I think it's taken that sort of Charlie Chaplin, Laurel and Hardy-esque kind of portrayal of people, you know, round about that time. That was just based down to technology of the day. That very jolty sort of effect of motion and stuff like that. That seems to have been cleared up in this footage as well. It's very fluid. As I said, the sound is probably the one thing that stands out the most to me. And hopefully I can get along to one of the theatres to see this. It's only 2 theatres here in the city. If not, I think it's going to pop up in the History Channel or something like that at some point anyway. Perhaps on Netflix, I don't know. It's getting good ratings, 9.2 out of 10. That's only 227 reviews. As I said, it's very limited, so those 227 people that have done the reviews have rated it very highly, and it's certainly something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised it's getting those sort of reviews, Stephen. It's very rare. It's a rare thing where you get someone like Peter Jackson doing this sort of almost documentary. It is a documentary, historical documentary, but a very niche subject. I mean, I almost feel like the Great War doesn't get quite as much spotlight as it probably deserves. It gets overshadowed by World War II just because that was ridiculous industrialisation on an incredible scale, war like you'd never really seen it before. This one kind of gets overshadowed, and it's a shame because it was like modern day technology and industrialisation meeting the older ways of fighting. Cavalry, you still had people doing cavalry charges and stuff. So again, I just cannot wait to see it. It's a subject I'm very interested in. And again, just like you said, Stephen, the black and white, it's almost, it creates a disconnect for people these days. They don't really judge us as being like today's society because it's black and white, it's just alien. So when you colorise it, it adds a bit of soul and humanity into all the people you're seeing. Even a dog as well at one point. Seen a little black, looked like a Labrador. And I thought, my God, that dog's been dead for at least 100 years. If it didn't get hit with a piece of artillery or something, then it's well gone. But again, it just adds humanity and soul to a period that's well befitting of it, so I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, and we're going to move on to our next topic, John. This is something that came in from IndieWire.com, and it's coming in from director Luca Guadagnino on directing Bob Dylan's inspired Blood on the Tracks. I don't believe in originality in filmmaking, he says, and this is going to be an adaptation of the 1975 album, John. It's one of my favourite Bob Dylan albums. It came out the year before I was born. A lot of people, bit of a mixed bag. I think it's one of his finest works. I think it's coming out October next year, John. I think that's it's very early days, this news actually. But this is going to be based on that album. It's a very good album, as I said, John. There's a few tracks on there, some of my favourites from Bob Dylan. He's always a character that interests me anyway, out with his music. I can't remember the name of the film. I think it came out in 2006, 2007. I Am Not There. Which it was a good concept to use all these different actors to play, you know, the legend that is Bob Dylan. I'll let you in, John, anyway, with this director. He's got previous. He's a well-renowned director. So I think the project is in the right hands. Yeah,
I mean, Stephen, the obvious one for me is obviously Call Me By Your Name. It was an Oscar-nominated film from last year. Incredible film. It starred Timothée Chalamet and obviously Armie Hammer as well. That was a fantastic film. And he's doing the Suspiria remake as well for later on this year, which looks utterly incredible as well. He's a fantastic director. And you're right, Stephen, he does say in the article that he doesn't believe in originality in filmmaking, that he thinks filmmaking is really a question of a point of view, and I can't think of a better person really to go in and adapt an album from in terms of storytelling and lyrics. He's just a lyrical genius, Bob Dylan, nominated for a Nobel Prize for Literature, and this is one of his most critically acclaimed and best albums from the 1970s. A whole host of very good songs in there, as you did say, and it was a very tumultuous part of his personal life. I think he was separating from his wife and stuff like that, and that was really bleeding in to the lyrics of the songs. So he's always been a man that's told a story through his songs. I think it was Talking New York, I think it was called, back in I think it may have been his first album. And that's just the story he told in that was incredible. So I've not really dived into them in terms of lyrically every single song, and I don't really know the in-depth what type of story he's going to be telling, but it's something that was very close to Bob's heart. He was going through a bad point at that time in his life, and it would have bled into the lyrics, and he's a masterful storyteller at the best of times. Even today, I think he's one of the few artists that's had a number one in every decade for about 5 decades in a row. So he's a masterful writer, and this is a masterful director, and I can't think of anybody better coming in to adapt this fantastic album into a fantastic film.
I think the director's covering his own tracks here as well by saying it's all down to interpretation, because you're right, John, Bob Dylan's lyrics are, it's how you interpret them. You guy's a lyrical genius, as you said, and you look at that track listing as well, how it gives you an idea. If you really delve right into the lyrics, it could give you an idea of how this movie is going to play out, or it might not. It depends on your point of view. As the director said, Tangled Up in the Blue, Simple Twist of Fate, You're a Big Girl Now, Idiot Wind, which is one of my favourite songs from Bob Dylan, You're Gonna Make Me Lonesome When You Go, and Meet Me in the Morning, Lily, Rosemary and Jack of Hearts, If You See Her, Say Hello, Shelter from the Storm, another great hit, and Buckets of Rain. It's a terrific album, so I'm very intrigued to see how the director's going to handle this, and also interested to see how he will interpret the album from his point of view as well, and see if it matches up to how I interpret those songs and those lyrics.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we always say about film, Stephen, it's all down to interpretation, and just it's very subjective, and it's the same with music. Some person may get something out of a song, some other person may get something completely different. Look at Charles Manson with Helter Skelter. He was a bit of a loon ball, got something very distinct out of that song. Also, that led to the events we're going to see in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But listen, he's quoting Kubrick and Hitchcock in the article, saying that they never made an original script or movie in their life, that they always made movies from the source, and it was some of the most strikingly personal and unique films of their generation. So if we can get that with this one, then I'm all for that. One thing I do know is, in terms of recently anyway, he's been on a very good run with films, and I know Suspiria is going to be outstanding as well. I can't wait to see this.
I think that when directors take it from source, it's added pressure to them as well. I think that's what makes them good directors. You look at the likes of the Tarantinos, who are their films are based on those directors' original writings, and it's very hard for them to be a moving target in any sense, because it's their original source material. They wrote the story, the screenplay and the script, all right down to the directing of the film. In this case, I agree with the director. I think sometimes, some of the best directors, as you said, Hitchcock and Kubrick, they didn't take it from anything original from themselves. It was always from source material. And I think that adds to the pressure of being the director, because, especially as you said, John, it's Bob Dylan's writings. But look forward to see how this goes. We're going to move on to our final piece of news this week, John. This is coming in from cinemablend.com, and its headline is What the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 delay might mean for Marvel's Phase 4 plans. As we know, it's indefinitely been delayed at the moment. All the carry on with the director and stuff like that we've already covered. We know that there's some rumours going about. There's, I think, maybe 3 or 4 names getting bandied about handling the third instalment of this franchise.
I hope none of them are right.
We'll get to that in a moment anyway, but it begs the question on how this might delay Marvel's Phase 4 plans. It's hard to say. I think more imminently is how it's going to affect the ending of Infinity War, or whatever it's going to be called, Avengers 4 Part 2, whatever you want to call it, how that's going to affect that. The whole thing is a bit of a civil war in its own, with Dave Bautista voicing his opinions and defending his former director as well.
Yeah, he's wanting to go to DC, isn't he?
Yeah.
He wants to join Suicide Squad. Well,
so Good luck with that, yeah. But it's one of these things, how it's going to affect this next phase. I'll be honest with you, I think perhaps the Guardians needs a little bit of a rest anyway. I liked the second part, but it wasn't a patch on the original movie. I liked what they did with them in Infinity War as well. I thought all the characters from Guardians of the Galaxy played their part in it. Didn't take you out of the universe that we know and love. Thought the chemistry between Chris Pratt and Chris Hemsworth was some of the best stuff we've seen. And it really just is, it's one of these things, I really don't know, I don't think we've got to concern ourselves too much with Phase 4 at this point, because I think they've got bigger problems in their hands with concluding this Infinity War Part 2.
Yeah, well, we obviously spoke about that, Stephen, in a previous episode. I don't know if it was of Movie Burner News or the podcast.
Yeah.
But Mark Ruffalo admitted they still hadn't finished they came up with the ending for Avengers. It was all very fluid, and that they were still working on it. So I think they'll probably still be working on it even now. If they're announcing that this is getting pushed back, I think this was the film they were going to spearhead Phase 4 with. This was going to be the one that took us into it. I don't quite agree with that, actually, though. I was always firmly of the opinion that Captain Marvel would be the one that would be opening up Phase 4. But even then, I'm tripping out my nuts, Stephen, because that's coming before Avengers 4 and it's set in the 90s, so no, it would have been Guardians of the Galaxy that was going to be spearheading the new phase. But James Gunn was also ousted over the whole tweet thing, and as I spoke about on the Force Friday show, this is something Disney are now developing a bit of a reputation for, sacking people for political witch hunts on Twitter. And he also had to go away. They didn't want him directing it anymore. He's now joined DC. He's doing Suicide Squad. We don't even know if they're using his script. It's been delayed. It's been pushed back. Now it's not even getting shot or starting production for another 2 or 3 years, or a year or two. In terms of what it means for Phase 4, I don't know. I think it's pretty clear that they're still trying to map out what's going to happen during Avengers 4. Well, they'll probably get most of it down. I would have thought they've shot most of it. They shot it synchronously with Infinity War, but they're still unsure about the ending and just how it's going to interconnect into all the things they're doing with Phase 4. But we've got Captain Marvel, we've got Spider-Man, the Vacation one, or whatever the hell it is. We've got Black Panther 2, and we've got a whole host of other films that are going to be coming out. So it's not something that's a burning issue right now. We have to get Guardians of the Galaxy 3 in there. They can give it time, let the controversy over the James Gunn thing die down. Maybe fans of the series will live and let die, get back on board, because there was talk of boycotts happening and stuff like that. So this will allay some of those fears. If we push it back a couple of years, Dave Bautista can make up his mind whether he wants to stay with Disney or jump over to DC. I know what I'd do if I was Dave. I would stay on friendly terms with James Gunn for future, but stay in Marvel, because Marvel know what they're doing, Dave. DC are a bit of a joke. And really, who are you going to play in Suicide Squad, son? I know they're talking about rebooting it with a new James Gunn script, but you're going to play Croc? I mean, come on.
Bane.
Yes, Bane. Well, he could play Bane, yeah. But I think you could live up to Tom Hardy's interpretation of that character. Stay with Drax. You bring good comedic levity to the film alongside the whole host of other ragtag members of the Guardians, so don't leave it. But I'm getting sidetracked here. Dave ain't listening to this. I can't convince him. He's going to do what he wants. But in terms of the whole wider MCU, I don't think it's going to have any massive bearing. I think it's probably more reflective on where they are at the moment. Still trying to come up with a good ending for Avengers 4. Still working out the timeline and how it's all going to interconnect. And listen, it may be a positive thing for Star-Lord as a character, because they may decide, listen, we're not going to bring back Gamora, we'll just leave her dead, which they may have been tempted to bring her back if they were bringing this out and spearheading Phase 4 with it. They may leave her dead, and then that'll mean Star-Lord has to stand on his own 2 feet. It may shape him into a different character, and we may see it going in a different direction, because there's only so far you can go with the whole music and comedy thing. At some point you have to take it maybe off in a different direction. I don't know though, but one thing's for sure, I'll be watching the next Marvel film regardless of what it is, Guardians or not, and I'll certainly be watching Guardians when it comes out too. So hey ho, I'm happy either way, and I trust in Kevin Feige.
And we're just going to wrap up this week's show, John, with our poll of the week.
Yes.
This went on last week. I certainly had a terrific response, over 500 votes. And the question was, which of these 4 Martin Scorsese movies is the best? Now, bear in mind, we've done a few Scorsese polls over the last couple of months because the man has got such a CV. But in this case, the options were Goodfellas from 1990, The Departed from 2006, Taxi Driver from 1976, and Raging Bull from 1980. And the results went as follows. Goodfellas won this by a long margin, a big margin, 50%, unbelievable, 16% for The Departed. Surprisingly, Taxi Driver only raked in 23% of the votes, and Raging Bull, surprisingly as well, only got 11%. Before I let you in, John, I have seen each of these movies once, and it's not because I'm not a big fan of Martin Scorsese. I am, but his movies to me personally always have a beginning, a middle and an end. They fulfill my enjoyment of the movie and I move on to his next great work. That's just the way I am. Goodfellas, I think, is the standout for me personally. I thought it was an excellent film. It's been a long time since I've seen it. A lot of people perhaps would disagree with me, saying Martin Scorsese films have got rewatchability. That's fine. For me, it doesn't. I enjoy his movies and move on to his next great work. Very much like the No Direction Home and the Rolling Stones one, Shine a Light. Thoroughly enjoyed them. Big fan of the Rolling Stones, big fan of Bob Dylan, but I've only seen them once. And I move on. So I'll let you in anyway, John, with your thoughts on this. I'm just more surprised that the likes of Taxi Driver and Raging Bull weren't as closer to Goodfellas as, I thought it should have been.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you said, Stephen, but first and foremost, you just got to thank people for voting in it, man. Over 500 votes again. Very much appreciated. Personally, I think they're all fantastic films. Even some of the ones that didn't make the poll, which we were reminded about, the likes of Casino and so on, they're fantastic films too, but you can only fit 4 in. That's what Twitter restricts you to. Or we would have a 10 option poll with all the various different films, just to keep everybody happy. But as I say, time and again, you can't keep everyone happy. Personally, I picked Taxi Driver because I think it's just an outstanding film and an outstanding performance from Robert De Niro. It's really a disturbed loner of a man who just lives in the peripheries of society, and it's just an incredible bit of storytelling and an incredible character. And it's all of his films, certainly the ones in this poll, are almost genre-defining films. The likes of Taxi Driver, genre-defining for the mystery crime. Raging Bull, genre-defining for sports drama. Goodfellas, genre-defining for drama crime. And The Departed, you could definitely argue, is a genre-definer for the drama mystery sub-genre. They're all incredible films. They're all get unbelievable star-studded cast. They've got good multifaceted stories. And he's an incredible director. He knows how to get the best out of numerous actors within films. Certainly The Departed. I mean, you've got a 3-4-way split between performances there. Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, Jack Nicholson, Mark Wahlberg. I think he actually won an Oscar for that. Alec Baldwin in there as well. The Goodfellas, Joe Pesci, Robert De Niro again. Really, just a whole host of incredible actors again. And it's very difficult to pick one out of a list like that because they're all good in their own merits. They've all got that thing that makes them very good. And that's why we do these polls, Stephen, because it fires up some debate over which is the best. Some people will come in with their opinion, others will come in with theirs. Some will fling in ones that are not even in the poll. I picked the Taxi Driver, but there's no right or wrong answer here. And Goodfellas won it, and hats off to it. But listen, ain't got much more to say. Love Martin Scorsese, and you're right, Stephen. I find these films are quite tough to watch. They get under your skin, and they make you think. They make you sit and brood over what you've just seen on the screen. It's very difficult to go back and watch them because they're uncomfortable watches a lot of the time. Certainly Taxi Driver.
I can't disagree with any of that, John, but that just brings us to the end of this week's edition of Movie Burner News. We'd just like to thank you once again for joining us, and we will be back again on Friday with the Force Friday show.
Remember, guys, if you enjoyed that latest episode, then do hit that like button, comment below, and maybe subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already. If you want to follow us on social media for all the latest updates from Movie Burner Entertainment, then we can be found on Twitter and Facebook at Movie Burners. You can also listen to us on Google Play and iTunes at the Movie Burner Podcast. And last but not least, if you want to access all the latest written reviews and the occasional article, then that can be found on our website at movieburnerintertainment.org. Until next time, goodbye.